Hello and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 245th New Social Environment. I'm Anya Bernstein, a production assistant at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of being your MC today for a conversation between Richard Tuttle, Amanda Gluibizzi, and Louis Bloch. We're also thrilled to have the poet Gabriela Jauregui here, who will read to close today's program. To begin, I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Wappinger, Canarsie, Munsee, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and Shinnecock Indian Nation, the traditional owners of Lenapehoking, the unceded land and waters on which we stand. We recognize that white settler colonialism is part of the continued legacy of white supremacy in this country, and has many nuanced and not so nuanced expressions. So before we get started, we'd like to take a moment to honor the memory of all those we have lost to white supremacy and police violence in this country, as well as to honor those who are working to undo legacies of violence and disinvestment, and acknowledge that justice will come from the streets, from the nation demanding accountability and refusing to move on until Black Lives Matter in the eyes of the state. So before I introduce our guests and hosts, we'd like to begin with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And now to introduce today's hosts and guests. Amanda Gluibizzi is the founding director of NAFAH and the art editor of the Brooklyn Rail. She specializes in mid and late 20th century art, design, and urbanism in the United States, Europe, and Latin America. Louis Bloch is a Brooklyn-based painter and writer. His writing has appeared in the Brooklyn Rail, Hyperallergic, and Full Bleed Journal, and his work has been shown in Baltimore, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Venice. And our guest, Richard Tuttle, is one of the most representative American artists of the post-war period, occupying interstitial positions between several genres, including painting, sculpture, drawing, and poetry. Consistently opens new possibilities for a variety of mediums and materials, demonstrating how traditional categories of art making can function as starting points for unhindered, open investigations into the functioning of perception and language. His early encounters with artists and artworks associated with pop and minimalism laid the groundwork for a project precipitated on reinvention and change. Since the 1970s, Richard Tuttle has been the subject of numerous solo exhibitions and at museums throughout the world. Tuttle lives and works in New York and Abiquiú, New Mexico. So without further ado, Amanda and Louis, please take it away.
Thanks, Anya, and thanks for being here, Richard. Excited to speak with you about the current work. I wanted to begin by asking about, and maybe we can go to slide 2, Malvika, when you have a chance. I wanted to begin by asking about a statement you made in the video that accompanies the show at Kordansky Gallery. You said that these current pieces, which you call heads, they're all titled something head, declare simultaneously that they are pictures and they are not pictures. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that. And I think we're prompting you to unmute now. You might just have to click the pop-up on your screen.
Mute. Okay. How's that?
There we go. Great.
Good.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I guess I find that place between this and that is a place of human freedom, and so and normally I would think that the great thing about art is that it sustains polarities that can't be sustained in life. But what are you saying when you say that? Why not say something the opposite, that the artwork can actually make polarities. And as we're talking about the subject under hand, why not think that you can take the picture and say, make something that is in some light, even the slightest light, a picture. After all, it's hanging on the wall in a picture-like situation. But on the other hand, ask if this is a picture, because part of the making of these works is what I feel taking the what has become, the world has become used to as a certain depth in which we live and communicate, and I think that one of the great things of the artist Fontana, these slice, what are they, ascete or paintings, is that they define their paintings of the depth that we operate in. And I've always felt challenged by those, because I feel someday, somehow, we can increase that depth. So in these works, the back panel, I feel, has taken this customary depth farther, and that the front panel sits fully in the place where we are used to dealing with, in this case, pictures. So, Louis, sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but but in that very physical sense, you have something that's composed of something that would very comfortably sit in a picture tradition, and something that doesn't sit in a picture tradition. And also, because I'm of a generation where you do a show to find out, as a kind of experiment, I'm asking, is this, can we do this? Is it, can you, but on the other hand, I find, especially in the stresses that are going on in the world today, that we have to find the source of human freedom in the middle of these stresses, in order to deal with these stresses. Also, normal picture making depth situations, you would tend to locate human freedom externally in politics, or conducts with intimates, or so on. But this is a case where and I'm following the great German philosophers thinking, Schelling, in this light, where he very adamantly declares that human freedom is in the middle of conflict and chaos. And I think these pieces are, in a pictorial sense, linked with that kind of thinking. And people seem to respond. I mean, it's not customary work. You can't look at it in customary ways. However, it's, I see, we'll come to a slide of my first exhibition at Betty Parsons Gallery. These pieces are very, come physically, and in terms of materials, in terms of labor, approaches to making, in many, many ways, are in a direct lineage. And I'm going to stop on that. And, sorry for being so long-winded.
No, we want you to be long-winded. That's perfect.
Well, thank you, Amanda. Yeah.
Richard, I assume that you're referencing Jackson Pollock when you ask, is this a picture or is it not a picture? Very famously, after he made one of his drip paintings, Pollock turned to Lee Krasner and actually asked her, like, is this a painting?
Right.
So I assume that that's what you're thinking about here. And so I guess one of my follow-up questions would be, are they?
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Well, I want to tell a little story that I find very shocking. I went to the Met and looked at their big Pollock, which I'd looked at a lot. But this time I'm referring to, I looked at it and the whole thing, the whole painting fell apart. It just, and it's like, you know, that can happen in history. We can always say, you know, how long is is a fashion statement going to last, or how long is many like an idea, there's a lifespan. And I saw that in this, what very shocked me was that the lifespan of the Pollock had completed. And that, I think, is probably an experience that led me to become suspicious of this, what I call the depth. And that the world, perhaps its complexity, its problems, it's what it is for us today, needs a greater depth, an artwork that operates inside a depth that's not this. Well, I am going to try to claim that this depth has been going on for a long, long time, and it unifies East and West, which I find, our situation is, if you happen to be in Western culture, you're fundamentally defined by going into the sunset. All the anxieties and the thinking, the preparations, or how do you deal with the sunset? And in Eastern cultures, it's the same as going into the sunrise, and all of the anxieties and mentalities and that are appropriate to experiencing a sunrise. Maybe some of these ideas are you call primordial, which is okay to a certain extent. But I think the one level, and I do try to build in as many levels as absolutely possible to these pieces we're looking at, is that question: why did the Pollock collapse or not work anymore? And one of the important reasons, I know this is a little arcane, but the reason the Pollock is a painting, and he might not have known that and asked Lee, because when he painted them, he was at one side through the paint and then went to the other side and through the paint. But if you look closely, you can see the result of that is he built a horizon line. In the painting, he simultaneously built a horizon line and I don't want to say destroyed, but broke. So the painting formed these two operations of making something and breaking something absolutely simultaneously in time. And that was that's why Pollock is Pollock. And that a lot of us have hung our hats on that achievement. But when you see it, the achievement crumble, it's very deeply disturbing. And so I'm not trying to what do you say? I mean, I think in making these pieces, there was a moment when I actually felt my own nature inside was joined and became absolutely in sync and synonymous with the nature outside. We live in these beautiful places, naturally beautiful places, and and you could say the point of that is exactly to figure out the nature in humans by connecting with the nature outside human beings, and to just breathe that air, try it out, because I'm tired of doing one more effort to define what nature is. There have already been so many definitions, and I don't. Of course, you know, Pollock is quite famous for having said, "I am nature." But that, you know, I would like to link to artists like Turner, who the great critic right there, Ruskin, said he didn't have to paint nature; he was nature. So this effort for artists to in a way fuse, I mean, the artist's soul with the natural world has a long tradition, and there's a meaning that goes along, and that even we could use to project ahead of us, and that's, I think, what these pieces are trying to do, that projection ahead. And Amanda, we had a chat last week, and I remember I introduced this notion of a post-conceptual world, and I find in the best of all possibilities, the post-conceptual world can have all of the ingredients, ask all the questions that have piled up in history and are a rich abundance, and the artists can pick and choose as they like, because the value of what the object is in a post-conceptual work is takes on, it is so rich, and it takes on vast richnesses, and it defines history by itself in using its history. So we don't, I mean, I think it solves a lot of problems, intellectual and artistic, at one moment. Again, I rattle on, don't I? Sorry.
No, that's great. While we're looking at this unlikely head picture here right now, I'm struck by these zigzag plywood portions that that are inset into the top plane, and I wonder if you think of them as links between the two planes of plywood, or as ways to disrupt, or like you were talking about, destroy a sense of a picture.
Thank you, Louis. If we saw this in person, we'd see that they are physically linked, and and that the piece couldn't exist, couldn't physically exist. I'm kind of proud of because it's a sort of engineering. It's a question of engineering, but I, you know, I've always felt this is a a lifelong journey, and that I'm actually trying to build a system that will take a lifetime to achieve. I should apologize for dragging the world through my development. But anyway, the first piece is, I mean, I think my very first work, you could say, investigated what we see here as a frontal plane. And then what we see as these zigzags is actually like an interior space. And you actually, I mean, I don't know about other people, but there's a part of myself I really despise, and I really, I would almost jump off a cliff to get rid of it. But the truth is, that's the only thing I know. And it's very, you know, existentially devastating to face the fact that the only thing you know is what you don't want to know. And so part of these pieces in this interior, which is indicated by the zigzags and so on, is that. And lo and behold, that becomes the structure, that becomes the engineering structure that holds the whole piece together. And then you have this back plane we mentioned a little bit before, that has also existed. I mean, the planes, there are, this is another ambiguous, because I say, like I'm 100% ambiguous, but I'm 100% not ambivalent. That I mean, and that's why an artwork is so important for me, because it's ultimately something where you can mean every molecule, of which there are billions, is something you mean, and what is not part of that is something you don't mean. And there's nothing else in the world that can answer those demands. So like in this case, even though like the paint, every application of paint is essentially a layer. And then of course the plywood is in layers. And I think like I guess, you know, sounds kind of awful, but the notion of the duty, when, you know, I find in our democracy, like going in front of the public is like going in front of God, you know, because this is like, it's a demos. It's we don't have a king, we don't have authorities. There's so many different kinds of people, and so, but that is the audience, and that is what you're putting yourself in front of, and these the particulars, and I think, you know, the quality quantity issues, but like and because I love people, it's not just a duty, it's a thrill and a pleasure to make a show like this one. There exactly 32 pieces. 8 is a favorite number of mine. That there were 8 made in New Mexico and 24 made in, you know, it goes on and on and on. To share, to both create, I mean, that's maybe using the Pollock model of simultaneously making something and breaking something, that you make this system that with intricacies that are way beyond. I mean, I call upon energies, forces, dimensionalities that are way beyond my limit, my range, and it's hard to stay in a critical relation that when I put something like that in the world, it stands both positive and negative criticism, because I really don't care. I mean, once I do all this work, I don't care, you know, if whether, you know, in that critical dimension. It's also, if I can try to illustrate that, that so often, automatically, when an artist makes something, people say, "Oh, you know, how is that? How, you know, you like, you know," but it's really in the relation between people and the artist that the work is, at that point when it's released in the world, it belongs to the world. And the artist is the last person to have anything to say or can say anything. You stand there and you blubber, "Oh, I liked it," or "I think it's fine," but you really don't know it. And it's fascinating. It's one of the mysteries to me why, in the chain of things, in the relation between, you know, people and art, that the switch from say the ownership values that go from a maker, an individual maker, to a group, a recipient. I love theater so much, because a lot of when I try to say what's on my mind or what I think, I'll use illustrations from theater where there's an event that happens on a stage, and then there's an audience, and the extremely complicated dynamic that happens when the exchange happens between an operative that's you know, a bezel of a focus, and then another operative that's in the not in a is like you could say the gem that the bezel holds. Well, that's a pretty good poetic image, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, there you go. I don't mind taking your time. Thank you very much. Okay. My wife is coming here with cues, and she says that you only can see half my face. Okay, so I'm going to try to correct that.
We were seeing the brain, so that's exciting.
The brain, yeah. Well, it's I mean, it's kind of I mean, I don't think of myself. I mean, that's one of my problems. Like when, you know, in school, when somebody says, you know, take care of yourself, or do this because it's good for you. You know, I always looked at, I like, where's myself? You know, like where is that thing? You know, and it's not like, it's not out of a skepticism or a cynicism, or it's like I find I don't know and, you know, this project or this period, I've gone back to this reading of these German romantics from Kant to Hegel, and the self, philosophically speaking, the self is very much of an issue for Fichte, for example, and but it's you know, I think for one thing, I feel as the artist, there's a kind of a flexibility, you could even say a kind of discipline where whatever that thing is, that self thing has to be very fluid and very, it can't, you could say it can't be out, it can't be in, and it can't even be in between. It's defined by, and people could say that's nothing, but it's not nothing either. It's, I at the moment would feel comfortable in defining it as a kind of exchange or fluid, like, and it shows up in can be embarrassing ways. Like in this case, perhaps because of Zoom, I've learned all your names from the first time I've heard them, but normally it takes me meeting someone about 4 or 5 times until I learn their names, because I'm not interested in their names. I'm interested in them, and probably their fluidity is my biggest interest. And if their fluidity is like my fluidity, and what that can, how that can, it's I know the issue of color came up, and I wrote this book called "You Never See the Same Color Twice," and that for me is taught me something where you know they're like when you go through life or you go through your day, you never, every second, every millisecond is something you're never ever going to come to again. And in a way to live, some of a lot of this is about the question of how to live. And but if you like in the morning, I don't get up until I have a phrase in my head that that is something I've never heard before, that takes my experience, takes my thinking, takes it's fresh. It's not art, I think, but that's, I'm sure, a to make sure that that's like a tool that day I'll experience my ability to experience every millisecond as unique and different and never repeatable happens as much as it possibly can. That what I say, learn from color, but I was at a panel at Notre Dame, the Center for Advanced Studies, and I had a big fight with a psychologist, a world famous psychologist, and later the MC of that event said that he saw that it was a classic fight between the humanist and the scientist. The science, you have to believe that things repeat. If you don't think that things repeat, you can't have science. And so I learned that my position or my dreams or my challenges in being alive are not, don't fall under the science aegis of them. Okay, there's some more images of the show. Yeah, this is this is a little illustration where I also find, and I again, I don't think of myself as anything or but representative, and in that I'm representative. If there's an artist, there's anybody listening who can say, oh, if Richard Tuttle can say that or think that, then it's permission, because I want to give permission to as many people for as much as I can. And so I just learned that, like, my brain works very elliptically, and I know I have long pauses and and things which are not. But look at that room. I'm speaking, or the art that is available uses the spaces just as much as it uses the pieces to bridge that unbridgeable. And there's
Richard, can I break in here really quickly just to ask you?
Please, yeah.
Are these hung at head height?
No, they're not, Amanda. I have like a favorite. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, and like we all, one of our favorite techniques is to belittle stuff, because we have so much stuff in our lives every day, and we can't take it all in. So, and I tend to, even like heads is a little bit like belittling, but it's okay. So, and but it functions as a title, and I think that's because the title of the show is 9 Stepping Stones, and like titles work in for different reasons. What makes a good title I mean, there can be the great title, like I'm just stunned with, because of reading the Kant, the Critique of Pure Reason. That's a great title. There's hardly ever been such a great title, because it says exactly what the book is about. It's just amazing, a perfect match. But there's no poetry in it at all, and there's no there's no secret in it. There's certain, I mean, you can't have a title that solves is constructed from every possible direction. So this okay, so what I say when I'm going to try to say, without belittling, without using any kind of spin, that a central point in consistently for 60 years in my work has been a point. It's 54 inches from the floor. And I don't know what that point is, and I struggle with it, and every day I hope that I've gone beyond it, and I'm deluded and come back to it. But this point, I find, has universals in it, where all cultures, it's of course, dependent, I think, on the notion of seeing. And Amanda, forgive me for this, if I can get into this area, because I don't believe, capital B, in philosophy, but I think it is a help, and the state of philosophy is this, I mean, sometimes I describe myself as an Epicurean, because the object for me, the senses, the 5 senses, are enormously important, and also because the 5 senses combine, in my opinion, into consciousness, and that all of the 5 senses have a state which we're given at birth, and then we as individuals can elevate those givens into a higher state, And like in English, we can use in the sense of looking, of eyes. We can say you're born knowing how to look, but you have to figure out how to see. Um, like with the ear, you're born knowing how to listen, but you have to learn how to hear. Those two words shift more radically. Um, um, and but in also the Platonic side of things, where you don't trust the senses, you exactly don't trust the senses, you only believe in the understanding, that also functions in my work. And so they but in these pieces at the Kordansky, as I said earlier, that they thrive in conflict. You know, so instead of you know, a lot of my work, I might try to bridge if there's a conflict, say even the conflict between night and day, because in these pieces, I should say the color is nominal, but the way the color is used is like a fractal. And what does that mean? It's like nominal means your experiences that are typical of your daytime existence. And the fractal, where you look up at the sky and what do you see? The stars, those stars are both in motion because of the turning of the Earth, but also the track of the orbit of the, and then also the stars themselves. So it's our night experiences, which are enormously important for how we construct meaning in ourselves and relations to other people, and so on, have a fractal component to them. And so as a picture, as an argument for a picture, it's trying to give someone to span the polarities of our experiences in the nighttime and the daytime. Okay, that being said, they try to, in terms of, are you believing in senses? Are you believing in understanding? They deflate those into a center. And then surprisingly, they say right in that center, here's human freedom. And whoever in a million years would think to find human freedom. But it's a kind of human freedom that is about health. And especially in the COVID, because I'm, have to say that I'm a COVID survivor, and part of figuring out how to survive is the use of human freedom, being able to go directly to the heart of human freedom and access that for purposes of individual health. And that to me is one of the radical parts of this show, because maybe why the heads is an appropriate title for them, because they are seeking a individual place, a place of the individual, and not for games or not for new horizons, but for actual life and death needs in face of the challenge that, and it's actually a kind of I find there it's like a dream of a little boy where I would want everybody to be happy and healthy, and where like in a bus, somebody across the way would ask my mother to tell me not to stop staring at them because, but I was staring at them to find them as an individual, to understand them, and ultimately I think I wanted to make something that was found in the viewer relationship, found the kind of essence of don't like that word, but the core of a possible thing. I mean, I am a human being. What else can I do? And so that and you know. The other side of anthropomorphism is there can't be anything. We can't see anything else except what concerns us, or what we're built, what we're made to see. And that is not, to me, it's let me say, an exciting limitation. And normally, I would say, feeling, I mean, people like, that's, I think, why it was easy to dispense with the frame initially, because it wasn't exciting. And so I've always been looking for this, a situation where the limitation was, had the quality of excitement in it. Okay, well, you guys are, anyway, now I'm, I've a lot of this stuff I've never reached before, so thank you very much for this kind of.
This is such a privilege for all of us. Thank you.
Well, you're great, Amanda. Thank you.
Richard, you said two different things in your answer that kind of point us to the question actually that Lewis and I wanted to ask you next. One of the things you said was that you use the space as well as your art when you're installing, like you really actively think about the space in which you're placing things. And also just now, you just said that we can see what we're made to. And this kind of points to this question about thinking about your work as a whole in installation. And how you do use the space. This is something, you know, we can go Malvika to the later slides and look at even these very, very early installations where you're really, really considering the space and let's say using it to teach your viewers, you know, how you like them to look. Could you speak to this a little bit, this idea of using the space?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm, you know, I get excited. I'm kind of unstable and excitable, but one of the excitements of the moment is a very deep sense of how, and I think it's, you know, pick up that excitement of limitation, that I had a little a residency at Yale, and part of that, well, I decided I would research. New Haven has an excellent historic society, that I would try to research my family's roots, because they were the first people in New Haven. And so what and it was, the research was really about trying to wrestle with my sense of guilt or responsibility as a colonist. And I came up with this idea that you had these people dressed as 17th century Europeans coming off this boat and onto the shore, where you had you met people dressed with skins, clothing made of, and and like what's going to happen when those two meet. And then anyway, that research developed into a notion that the European had already decided on a dedicated overworld that was fundamentally about time. And the New World was equally dedicated to to space. And so really what that picture is of these people getting off this boat and meeting people was a confrontation of time and space. And where, when we're born, we have equally, we are born into a world where, and it's if you ask somebody a memory of their childhood, it's always going to be about space, because we're systematically deprived of space. Anyway, artists have come in and made space like one of the most important parts of contemporary art. Of the, most of us are concerned with that sort of thing. And I find even people ask, well, why do we still have this white cube gallery, and why is that, and all that? Well, that's because that's just a statement that we're about space. We need to build a world which is in balance and in sync. It's not a conflict. It's no longer a conflict between time and space. If we have both, it's a happy relationship. Let's figure out what we can do with that. So for example, in my work, I mean, one of the biggest political statements, and people will say I'm not political. I mean, I am like so political, you can't believe it, sure. But the political statement is like, you don't need the frame because space is a frame. And that's like, as a 22-year-old, my, taking off my hat and saying, even as an individual, I can exist as an individual because I'm standing in my society, or in relationship to my society, and saying, hey guys, here's, just as you said, Amanda, here's space. Because part of the dominant culture has always loved cheap energy. And so cast in that light, you're saying, hey, here's all this gorgeous available space, and it's here, we have, it's free. It's, you don't, and so the intentionality of what we're, like, it's this, I think in a sense that that issue, and I don't quite know how to, but the notion of the a priori of Kant, that we depend, we're even constructing a sentence, we're depending on a fantastic organization that we're not visibly, we're not conscious of, either tangibly or intangibly. It's just there, and it's a good thing, and it's what makes the world good. And so I think like my wire pieces, for example, I just understood it's not the shadow that is exciting, it's the light that makes the shadow that's exciting. And the artwork only makes that, the purpose of the artwork is to make that available, but you can't, like, you can't, there's no other way to express that. I mean, even in philosophy, Kant can't express that in words, and so I think communications important communications have to rely on critics, investigation, art, all these things. And if I said what's bad about my work is that I'm too obsessed about bringing intangibles. It's not my job to, but it's sort of, I love people so much that I want them to have the advantage of a lot of the intangible side of life. And like I think a good artist is trying to make something visible that is normally or not naturally visible. And so it's a little bit, I try to keep on that side as much as possible, but it's this, you know, what is it? You know, I guess I find if you can combine reason and love, I mean, really deep love, intense love with reason, nobody can, that's the judgment. There's only, you can reach a point where you free as a soul from judgment because you're doing the same thing that judgment, the only thing that judgment could do. And I actually like proceeding. If I said, well, where are we going from here? I would say, take that route, you know, take the route where you combine love and reason and go as far as you can forward.
One of the things we wanted to ask was about color. I was reading one of your more recent books, Not the Point, and in it you're trying to access these internal colors that are not associated to any external feature in the world. And I was wondering if you could talk about how you mediate between that internal and interior and exterior relationship to color when making work.
Very, very, very good question. Louis, one of my insights, and I think part of the work of the artist or creative person, poet, is acquiring insights, and that's okay. So the insight I want to mention is that you know, whether it's philosophy or physiology or whatever, you know, there's an interest we have in how our brains work, you know, how it is we think, you know, how we perceive, and again, for the artist, like it's a technical side that you at some point you have to address how it is that we see, you know, because that's the means of the communication or the connection. And so there's a whole, and I think the piece we're looking at right now is an excellent example of this, what I'm about to say. I find that we apparently cannot figure out how we think. And you know, whatever that, you know, the distance or for whatever the question is. So my insight was that the way we perceive color is the way we think. And we can learn, it is available, I believe, to figure out how we perceive color. And and then it's an easy step. We extrapolate, and then we can figure out how we think. You know, so this is and so the your question is very good, because it is a question of inside, outside, but I'm just going to try to tell this very quick story. I made an exhibition here in New Mexico called North-South Axis, and some of it came from, I looked at European art, and I saw all structural problems were solved, had to be solved in terms of black and white. And then color was just used to fill in. Once you figured out your structure, you filled in. And that, whereas if you look at the art of the New World, they can solve structural problems with color. And not only is that exciting, because of course they can use black and white and color, you know, so the boy, and then that the color is so beautiful and so moving in this sense. When you experience an artist from the Andean tradition, it's just and then in addition to that, I find that because I feel that art is the same, and I want to throw out this idea that it's like, you know, having, you know, asked myself or somebody asking me, what is art? I want to throw out the idea that art is a transition from fact to fancy, and that in that sense it's universal. Many different cultures in many different periods have made that transition from fact to fancy, and I feel the more art you have, the better for you. And so the only issue is to figure out how to access that transition. And if the transition holds things in it that you haven't had from your own culture, you know, or your own generation, you know, better for, you know, it's more reason for you to figure out how to do that access. And then in this issue of figuring out color, was in that exhibition, North-South Axis, make a long story short, we found a paper that a scientist in Los Alamos had written about color being something you learn on your mother's knee. So there you are, you know, sitting in that wonderful, comfortable place, and she points to blue and says blue to you. And I feel it's like what they say about an alcoholic taking their first drink, you know, that you, I am somebody who has been searching for that blue that I know came from that moment, and it's actual, it's in the world, it's out there somewhere, but at the same time, it's in my head, and someday, somehow, there's going to be this wonderful moment when what's in my head connects exactly to something that's out there in front of me, and I'm going to be deliriously, and that is going to tell me about color. And I, you know, as you pointed out, thank you, that color is a very big deal. But I'm not, would never consider myself a colorist in terms of having an edge or knowing or even I'm interested because I have to be, not because I want to be. I want to be because I have to be. So that piece that we had been looking. Oh yeah. All right. Now we have something else. Okay. Can we, Louis, redirect, or can you respond in any way to what
I think the statement about searching for that blue that's existed in your mind is a really great one, perhaps to transition on. I know I want to be mindful that we have a lot of questions from the audience, but Amanda, I was wondering if you had some final thoughts.
No, I don't think I can be any better of a person to sum up what Richard just said than Richard. So I think we should move to the participant questions.
Well, it's it's Louis and Amanda and Anya. I know I'm like a if you saw me at another face, you might find me in a corner, all rolled up in a ball, and I get excited, or I love my work and my what I guess is a gift of a life work so much that I'll tend to be like a rock star who gets on stage and they just you can't shut them up. I mean, we could go on for 3 weeks. On the other hand, sometimes it makes it hard for people to ask questions because I guess that's a thought too. My brain is, you can't help, every day you get more input in your brain, and to ask it to move when it's as full and complicated as it can be is what I mean. And so when it spills over, I mean, I love sharing my thoughts and passions and so on, but I don't want to, I am absolutely not assuming that they should be taken on or this. I wrote a note to a young artist in Berlin where I said that insight always goes forward, and that you can simultaneously know that it's insight if it's going forward for you, and you're the only person who can tell if it's going forward or not. And so I would hope that anything that I said or that was like an insight could be passed on, and what can't go forward, what is not passable on, will just disappear someplace into the void. But it's nice when I think people, and I think that's a lot what art is about, is exchanging insights, and it's absolutely cross-cultural and like the heads, like the heads are trying to do.
Well, thank you so much, Richard.
Yes, thank you.
Anya, do you want to see if there's some audience questions to ask?
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can see the audience is reflecting your excitement and love for your work with the sheer amount of questions that we have. So yeah, let's get into it. Our first question comes from Elise Ansel, and you should be able to turn on your microphone.
Mute.
Elise?
Okay, I'm here.
Hello.
I am.
Hi there.
Sorry, I didn't expect you to.
I can also read for you if you
Okay,
prefer.
here we go. Hi, huge
Yeah.
fan, Richard Tuttle, and my dear friend and huge mentor, Marilyn Lenkowski, always said to me, Richard Tuttle is an energy wizard. He is magic. And my question, I have two questions. I watched the David Kordansky video, and there was one question where you said the job of art is to, can you read it? I lost it, but it was like to balance. Do you have it probably in front of you? Because I don't have anything in front of me right now. Go ahead.
I do. The question was, what did you mean by one of the rules in art is that in order to suspend disbelief, you have to prove something into equal and opposite ways.
Yeah, I didn't get that. What did you mean?
Yeah, that was a more of a discovery than an insight. It's because like we by nature we have to go through the world like in a protection, you know, into a like we you know, call it ego, or we or even, I don't know, like clothing, and to break out of, to have an art experience, I find is like having the rug pulled out from under me. That's actually a quote from Marcia Tucker, you know, who, and we don't want to have the rug pulled out from under us. You know, it's not comfortable. Like we lose balance, we lose our, and I find in making something also, I'm, you know, as it were, stripped bare and broken down to like even pre-infancy, but it's refreshing. It's a cleanse, and it brings things like the truth and real beauty. And so in I find an artwork for the, you know, say if the artwork begins from that place, then it goes all this distance and it winds on the wall someplace and somebody is seeing it, then I want it to do the same thing. Because, for example, you know, it is, I consider high value that you can be 80 years old and you can like have an experience either of making or from an actual artwork, and look out and see the world like it was the first moment you ever saw the world, you know, and the freshness, the precision, the levels of interest, and so I find artwork is very much about the spirit, the human spirit, and you know, it's the only thing in life that can grow. I mean, everything else, your brain and your body and your organs and everything goes down the tubes, you know, but your spirit can actually grow. And for your spirit to grow, it needs renewal, it needs refreshment, you know, and that it's art, in poetry, all the arts. And this is why I'm an Epicurean, I guess, is because the senses, all the arts, like even cooking as an art, can renew you, refresh you when it's, so, and I know some of that thinking is not popular in the world today. What we really want is for art to be easier, you know, everything to be easier, and but sometimes you know, you have to forget that when the rewards from rewards outstrip easy. But anyway, that probably doesn't answer the question.
But it moves into a whole other territory, like, wow. So you're saying like to approach art making, you have to make yourself that open and that open to having the rug pulled out and then move forward from there.
Yeah, and I also think that it's quite beautiful where the artist you know, has to go out outside of, I mean, you could say, I mean, we are bound, our humanity is a huge, huge bind that in a way you can't even recognize until you try to make an artwork, you know, because you have to go outside of that in order to find the material, you know, the raw material. And ironically, this is my point that, you know, the only thing I know is what I don't want to know. Like, you know, I don't want to go outside of, I mean, nobody wants to go outside. That's why a lot, you know, artists usually had really rotten childhoods, you know, or they're so unacceptable, or what do they say, undateable as among because it makes it a little easier to find the raw material, you know, to because you know, when I say this, I mean, you know, and this is why the individual, I've mentioned a couple of times during this talk about my sense of the individual. And this is another insight I've had lately because it's so important for me. But ironically, I don't mean me, I mean you, you know, like even on this screen, I'm just having so much fun. Like, oh my gosh, her hair is like that. She's holding her hand like that, you know, her shoulder is like this length, you know, another. I mean, my pleasure in life, you know, is so connected to the individual. And I explore myself. Maybe the reason I explore myself so deeply is to enjoy you more.
Wow, that is like amazing what you're saying. And so I mean, it's such a kind of incredible.
I can tell you're an artist. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah, thank you. You're giving me like a whole new way to approach making art. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
I had never even thought of these things. Isn't that crazy? I'm 60. I've been doing this since I was 5, and I never thought about any of what you're saying really this way.
Yeah, but that's also one of our issues. I discovered, you know, in this, you know, I was always the kid who the teacher would say, you know, if he spent half the time looking at the blackboard that he spent looking out the window, you know, he'd be a good student. But I was deeply involved with my thoughts, you know, and looking at, and I loved going to school because I got to think my thoughts, you know, and I didn't want to learn anything. I mean, and I actually was, because my thoughts were also critical thoughts, and like how I didn't want to sit there and just take in this garbage, you know, that and turn out like I was supposed to, you know. I mean, so, but you know, looking out the window gave me really what I needed. But then later, I think you can convert all of that into the art making, the creation of art, and how to say it, that I want to, in terms of like one of the consistencies in my practice is what I call visual thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can go, I mean, and I just, you know, because also I think the artist, unlike the philosopher, the artist's job is to contradict themselves. You know? So like, yes, I'm going to contradict myself. I love those thoughts. Those thoughts are important and so on. But on the visual side, I can go like 10,000 miles an hour, you know, compared to what my brain can think, you know, think through those things.
And your hands can make, like, can your hands make it as fast as your visual side can?
Well, thank you. That's a great thing, because one of, I think, another insight or discovery is that the hands have intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
In certain cultures, like the Japanese culture, shows us over and over again beautiful, beautiful things that come from the intelligence of the hand, not from, I mean, yes, the head and the heart all have intelligence, but the hands have a unique intelligence that, and that's why I think I can't, I'm not the kind of artist who sends the work to the factory, because I mean, my hands, the pieces have to have something that only the hands can give. I hope it's intelligent. I mean, in that sense, intelligent in sense of we exist. Our existence is an intelligence. You know, that's not. I'm not trying to be smart.
This is like amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you're
So
very
much.
welcome. Good luck with your work. Yeah.
Thank you. So from my heart, from my hands, huge. Thank you so much.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise and Richard. That was
Thank
beautiful.
You. Beautiful. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, wonderful discussion. Our next question, actually, there are two questions that relate to material I thought that could be asked together. The first comes from Bobby G. If you want to ask your question, you should be able to.
Hi, I'm Bobby.
Hi, Bobby. Hi.
Chiming in from Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much for just how generously you're able to speak about your work, and it's so much like your work, I think, in that it's like just seems like it's coming from all these different angles, and ultimately the work is about experiencing the object itself, I feel like. But I was just curious, like, how you arrived at working with the plywood and the like spray paint or airbrush pigments, and if you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Are you in your studio? Is that your studio behind you? Is that your studio behind you? Oh. Can he hear me? Oh, did we just?
Oops, sorry. I'm a studio tech, so I manage a printmaking studio. So not technically my studio, but kind of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think one thing is that I work in Maine in the summertime, and they're like no art stores. And I know people, can just call up Amazon and have something delivered and so on. But I have this investment in like locale that because I think art is such a huge thing. I want to try to express its availability, and because I find it's useful, but and when I say that that art is about fact to fancy, I also want to say that art is the greatest tool we have for life. And so that fancy has a very important point, because I struggled years about this, because I love art so much. I would think it was more important than life. And it was, but now as a more mature entity, I recognize that life is much more important than art. But nevertheless, art has this special ability to make life what life is. And so like spray paint, there's spray paint everywhere. And even in Maine, in the local hardware store, and there's also plywood. I guess what do you want to say, that I guess okay, let's go back to life, where life could be a game, or like have a game aspect. Well, that you're so as a player, and you're totally respectful that you can say your sacrifice. What's the relation of your sacrifice to your gain? And you're there. It brings out your full everything about you, and that's actually what I wanted to ask you something about. So maybe this is my way of figuring out how to do that. But okay, here's a game for you where you just called in this question. That's a bit of a sacrifice, because you could be doing a lot of other things. You could be doing your own work. You could be working in the studio. You could be doing, a lot of things. And so, but let's say there's a reward that you get. And would you, in terms of playing this game, and I hope I've communicated, but would you, as a player, would you like to keep your sacrifice and your gain as close together, so that like from moment to moment, you don't know whether you're in the sacrifice stage or the gain stage, or would you rather have them far apart? Would you like to say, oh, well, I did that sacrifice over there, and I'm playing this, you're the boss, you can have your sacrifice and your gain. Which would you prefer of those? Or you could even say, I'd like them halfway. You could say anything. You're being creative now. Turn on your creative juices.
I'll try and answer that. It's funny you asked that, because I live at my job. I live at the school that I work at, and we're in the woods, and it's funny to have that. I do have a pretty direct relationship in like a fundamental way with like the sacrifices of like kind of not being able to leave my job, like I can't turn it off because I live where I work. So, but also affords me the benefit of, we're in COVID times right now. We don't have students here, and I can use the studio space for myself, which has been like amazing. I don't know if I can frame it in the same way that I'm kind of interpreting that you're thinking about it, in terms of like the materials and your daily sort of interactions with them, and the processes that you're engaged in terms of sacrifice and what I'm kind of getting from the sacrifice. That's something I'll have to chew on for a long time, I think.
Well, it's a little bit also the an honest, human to human thing about your free will, and I don't want you to think about it for because that would your answer would what the answer I'm looking for is that you tell us how you use your free will. In a way, you told us a lot, and I really appreciate hearing that. But do you make, so you're a maker, you're making something. What are you making?
I'm right now making screen prints that I'm going to make collages from, and I've realized that I have to kind of like get over the technical processes that I'm working in and learning, because I'm learning a lot right now, and I don't really have a background in printmaking. And it's been interesting to kind of just like let myself make things and know that it's going to take me somewhere, and not have to have a really full grasp on what that is right now in the moment, because that's so stifling, and I don't want to make work like that anymore. So I think the freedom that you speak about in your making, it's like, yeah, it's the ultimate freedom. And it's like, as artists, we're our own bosses. And like, what other realms do people have that kind of freedom? So I think it's so important to, what you're saying, that it's an exploration of individual freedom. It's crazy.
Crazy. No, it's not crazy. That, oh, thank you. No, now I can be mean. I'm trying to be mean. No, well, I like it that you built you build a structure here. You describe yourself in this COVID situation and no students, and then you built this other structure. And I think if I can use this to talk about the heads pieces in this zigzag, that because you in what you said, you showed there's this freedom exists. Because you can separate your art making from your actual situation, and so that already criticized. I was trying to make your situation and your art making flat, together, but and because some of this is language, but you build a structure where they're not the same, and then you bring up the idea of freedom. So I would say that because not just am I trying to find local color in a hardware store, I'm also trying to find something about people, that the content is the desired content is available, necessary, clear, and fundamental. And so you just made a heads. You just created a heads for the whole audience in itself. And there's nothing more I want to do, than be awake to life or be alive to life, so that I can make artwork with a content that is as relevant as is the essence of our conversation. What we just conversed. So thank you for. I told Louis and Amanda that those artists, poets, writers write, artists only make art. I turned the mail into an artwork thanks to you. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Blessings and good luck with your work.
Thanks so much.
I look forward to seeing it someday.
Me too.
Cheers. Cheers. Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you, Richard. I love seeing these exchanges between artists. And we have another young artist who has a question, Kern Samuel. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Oh, thank you. And thanks everyone for this opportunity. Thank you, Richard. So I'm an artist living in New Haven, Connecticut. I just finished my MFA in painting at the Yale School of Art. So I'm just like settling down in my studio in New Haven. And sometimes, well, this happens to me a lot, where I get an initial inspiration, either something from memory or something I feel in my body or something that I am inspired by in the world. And then I start to generate artworks, processing to generate some artworks. But through the process of making, I kind of get inspired by the unexpected moments in that process. And then I feel a lot of guilt about almost abandoning my initial idea or my initial inspiration. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that problem or.
No, man, no, you got to keep going forward, on that, and don't get scared, because, yeah, that's, I mean, life is weird because, it reads both ways, it's like, like sometimes if I like see a retrospective of an artist, I like to start at the end of and then read backwards, because the art, whatever's there, is going to be in a way, maybe more available reading backwards than reading forwards, for an artist, I think, well, and okay, so that's going to take me to, reading this philosopher, this Schelling, I mentioned that earlier. And like, he's one of the great things he said, he's like one of the few philosophers who I think understands art, is that, every generation has their inspiration, has their own inspiration. So what I'm hearing you say a little bit is the, and it's going to hurt, because like you go to a museum or you're in school or something like that, and you kind of know, as an artist, where that inspiration is coming from, and what it, what it's, and it's a community, and we're all, we learn from each other, and we expand and we grow. Hopefully, this keeping on the on that road, stay ahead. And so I'm hearing, and that's a kind of cool thing, because you can hear the inspiration of another generation. And it's a beautiful thing, because like, yeah, I mean, it's great to understand your own generation's inspiration, but how much greater it is to understand another generation's inspiration and appreciate it as much as you appreciate your own generation, like, wow, like you're really getting, getting a lot, because that's another part of the game of life is to win, and like you win because you just accumulate, all of this good stuff, like and every day is another chance. So what I'm hearing and you saying, and if I, we're next to each other or something, I could, feel the freedom to point out what I sense is your inspiration, your actual generation inspiration. And I love, because also with the Schelling guy, he taught me, like, well, I don't have to just have my own generation's inspiration. I can have like another inspiration, as well. So like the work I'm working on right at the moment is coming to me from a completely other place than my work has ever come before, So and part of it has some of that quality you mentioned, where there's like a thing about going backwards, where and the nervousness, because like also, as a student, and just coming as a student, you have to shake off a lot of that student mentality, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
and so the I want to say, and I wanted to say this earlier, something I learned in in Japan, which is a culture and country I love. Anyway, they it said that oh no, I flipped that one out. Anyway, yeah, it's I guess Richard's getting a little tired now, but it's yeah, I want to say this as a maker, as the maker. And this is advice I got from the great artist Agnes Martin, and she said, when you wake up in the morning, I guess it's founded on the notion that you can personify your art. So there's your art out there in front of you, and you can say, hey guy, you are beautiful, you are what is it you want to do today? You know, like, where are we going to go today? Are we going to go to a museum? Are we going to rest? And you build up this relation with this person, and you can trust them, and they trust you, and then you can ask difficult questions, like the one you just said. Like yesterday, I got nervous because I mean, what I love, frankly, about what you said is you're into a zone where you're talking about origins of things, and ends of things, and that's and that is like so healthy. It's like a little bit what I was trying to say. It's like if you make something that's, you could say is a picture, half of it says it's a picture, half of it says it's not a picture, and like, you know, and what is that? That's because you now I'm like, I think I'm talking to a real artist, so I'm getting like kind of like because the you know, I don't know if you listened when I was talking about this, you know, the space and time issues, and the struggle where we have a big social struggle going on, and that's like it's the building, and we use this phrase, a post conceptual object, the object and the post, because when you get nervous like that, what you're saying to me, I think, is you're nervous because your head is wrapped around this this object in the conceptual phase, and like you're, I mean, you know, life, every person has a life, you know, you're young, we're middle age, we're, you know, like, and so like your life, your actual life is available to you to guide, as a guidance, you know, because your life is, I mean, it is really a happy thing to have a life, you know, and that the artist, the guide, normally the guide to your work is your happiness. You have to be happy, you know. There's no bullshit, you know. There's no, you can't fool yourself, you know. You either are or you aren't, you know. But in addition, we have this new issue where your life is can be married to your critical sense, you know, dimension, and I know you can, you know, it's like I almost feel like there's a divine part of this conversation where you can call upon that to pull yourself into your new situation, you know, and it's a gift, because you want to get rid of that Yale education as fast as you can. It can be really hard. I mean, it's the best art. Oh, I shouldn't say that, but my daughter went to.
No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that relates to me. Yeah.
Okay, well, but also the other thing I liked in your description, you went through. There's a rhythm. You're thinking. There's a rhythm in your thinking, and I just love that, and I want to point that out to you because it's yours, and nobody else's, and that's like, I just wrote this kind of piece about a great artist named James Bishop, and I said, you know, he doesn't have anything to do with my work, but if I want to look at another artist's work, I go to his work, because I know he's an artist who does his own work. You know, he does nobody else's except his own work. You know, and I need artists out there, you know, who are doing more than I need artists who make work like mine. You know,
Mm-hmm.
We can do it, man.
Thank you.
I think that's my idea.
No, thank you. Thank you. That was great. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Congratulations on your education. It's great, but dump it as soon as you can.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying.
No, it takes an artist, a great artist, to do it, I think. It's a really interesting place. Anyway, hope to see you in New Haven.
Yes.
Be well. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Richard, for your generosity. We're going to turn to a question from Susan Harris.
Susan.
You should be able to speak, yes.
Oh.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Susan. Hi. How are you?
It's great to see you. And thank you so much for...
You and Louis both have a gap between your front teeth. That means you're happy. Did anybody tell you that? That's a sign of a happy person?
Oh, no, Richard, Louis, we're happy.
Yeah, I know Louis is happy.
Well, my questions seem so mundane compared to these beautiful questions from these young artists, which were wonderful, and your exchanges with them were so wonderful. But going back to something you said earlier, and I wanted to ask you two questions, which I sort of feel are related. So I will ask them together because we could probably spend a lot of time on each of them. But I wanted to ask you about the light that makes the shadow in your wire pieces. And that your wire pieces have always been really critical in my thinking about art and about drawing. And so I wanted to ask you, what is the light, or what's the light source that contributes to that shadow in your wire pieces? And then this is a question, I mean, we've talked about, but I think about this a lot and wonder about those early works that were unframed and your decisions, I think it's a series of decisions for you to later frame them. And I feel it has to do with light in some way, which is why I bring those two seemingly separate questions together.
Okay. Well, thank you, Susan. I think there's a fundamental distinction between sunlight on the one hand and light on the other. We can experience, for example, at dawn or at dusk, this moment between night and day, which is so telling that, and so, when in art, you can talk about, certain artists are referred to as painters of light, like Vermeer, for example, outstanding example, but they're painting what I call the not sunlight, other light, and that light has a powerful symbolic effect on us. I even think that in its values, but that our job as human beings is to absorb as much light, not sunlight, the other light, as possible, and that we can actually give that to our children, both intellectually and physically, but spiritually, and that this is because I find we're a species that's trying to survive, and that light is really food for the spirit, and that art has a fundamental purpose in that, and you raised the issue of the wire pieces, and that was quite a struggle because I myself like them without the shadow perfectly well. It took me years to step up to the viewer and find the with the shadow was the important part. Again, they're ambivalent. Another thing, I like them from the side better than from the front. But in China last year, I had to build angled walls, and the inside of the angle had a wire piece and then a attachment of a lamp on the other angle. And for the first time, I felt the frontal view equaled the side view. So that was the development in art of the artist, I think is a fascinating thing. It's like discovering a novelist when they're 15 and reading them as they grow through their life. That artists, the capacity, I mean, the exact artwork will capture so much. It's like a perfect, it's diaristic in that sense. I mean, I could never make the work. That being said, I played with that as well, like a wire piece. The nature of the wire piece is that I can make it still today, and not only can I make it better, but it's like insurance, where if I stay on the track as who I am, I will be able to make that same piece I made years before more beautiful, more deeper, and in a sense, it's a strategy to not only protect myself, but to show people the difference, what I think, the way the story, because we nevertheless exist as entities because of the way a story has been told. I don't believe in that story. I think we can create we can exist as entities in many, many ways that we haven't yet figured out. And one of the exciting things about life is, in fact, discovering an entity that has yet and share it and pass it on to other people. So the light that makes the shadow takes in a symbolic element that, and the irony, and that's like turning, normally irony covers up truth, but in this case, it's actually revealing truth, because that particular lamp, which is an incandescent lamp, reaches a symbolic and a general, so the experience, it's like normal art practice where a specific experience right before your eyes transmogrifies into a general experience of great meaning and of great interest. And I guess what I'm saying is that silly incandescent light bulb is for us in an artwork, because we need art, is the light that painters of light like Vermeer use, if that's not too aggressively convoluted or something. And then the other idea of the framing, where the addressing, my work has addressed, like these philosophers, the issue of human freedom, and I in fact changed. I changed enormously from, like, I used to think I was somebody who could find, the one right answer, and that the whole world and everybody has been looking for that one right answer. And then I changed enormously that right answer belongs to each person who can express somehow in words or pictures or music or something what life is for them. So I am not consistent. I don't claim to be consistent. And in fact, I think it's as I said before, the job of the artist is to contradict themselves. And so, if you look at my work online and it's like, what is this person doing? I mean, it's like, but it'll come out, when I get 25 more years to work, it'll all be addressable. Anyway, thank you. Love seeing you. Kisses, kisses, Susan. Thank you, and congratulations on your new board position. I know you'll give us
Thank you.
A new rail.
Yeah, I'm very proud to be part of this.
A new rail. Yeah, nobody else but you could do it.
Thank you, Richard.
You're the best. Bye.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you, Richard. We're going to, unfortunately, have to start coming to the close of our Q&A. And so we're going to turn to the Rail's very own publisher, Phong Bui. And yeah, you should be able to turn on your microphone.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can just listen to you all day long. Thank you, Amanda and Louis. Oh yeah, easily. So it's not so much a question, it's really a deep observation of your work that I can try to share with everybody now. Simply, it's just the last time that we spoke, we talk about artists are like clouds. And it's so interesting, Richard, because, when we also spoke about Kant and his relationship with Fichte, his younger contemporary. And the interesting about Kant is that Kant was very aware of Swedenborg's work, have a significant influence on him, not overtly like the way that Swedenborg influenced, let's say, William Blake. But certainly it had significant influence to the extent that he published a whole book on it, and it was called Universal Natural History and the Theory of the Heavens, where he argued that dim or thin gaseous clouds slowly rotate, slowly disappear, collapses, and flatten out due to gravity, and eventually forming stars and planets. And it's so interesting thinking about, your work just now that you shared with us. I can't help but think of the great 13th century philosopher poet, Japanese, named Dogen Genji, who's known to be very mischievous. He wrote a verse in Chan practice that say that the self advances and confirms the 10,000 things is called illusion. That the 1,000 things advance and confirm the self is called enlightenment. So in any way, thank you, Richard.
Oh, that's great. I just want to say that the intellect. I think Swedenborg. I mean, the mystic that you find in Blake is how the intellect will deal with some of the things I've been saying, and that I want to say that I'm very comfortable being thought of as a mystic, and so if that and that's a that there's a very interesting and unexplored relation between the sense, like the visual, like consciousness. When consciousness becomes everything that consciousness can be, and the mystic space. And I think that's really unexplored, and I would hope the rail could take on some of that, the work, and bring us both a deepening sense of the consciousness that has a happy relation with the mystic, as we have to enrich ourselves as human beings, and this is we want the rail to be an entity that truly enriches. That's the new social practice, I think, enrichment.
Thank you.
For everyone.
Beautiful. Back to you, Anya.
Thank you so much, Phong, and thank you, Richard. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. I wish we had the time and energy to get to all of them. It's like the most questions we've had for a Q&A in a long time, so you can just see how engaged everyone has been in this conversation from the chat, and I love how this is really an ongoing conversation in the Q&A between artists and those who love art. So thank you, and thank you, Amanda and Lewis.
You're the best MC ever.
Thank you, Richard.
Not only are you beautiful and intelligent, you can do a job.
Thank you.
You're polite with excellent manners and a good work ethic. Thank you.
I really appreciate.
I just want to
appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with you. And yeah, I'm sad to have to close out the conversation. But we do get to end our event today with a poetry reading, which is a pleasure. We have that tradition here at the Rail. Pre-digital times, we'd always end lunch with a poem, and we've carried that into these community events. So today, I'm thrilled to welcome our poet laureate of the day, Gabriela Jauregi, to the stage. Gabriela Jauregi is the author of the poetry collection Controlled Decay, 2 hybrid genre books, Leash Seeks Lost Bitch, and Many Fiestas, a book of short stories in Spanish, La Memoria de las Cosas, and the feminist anthology Tsunami. She holds a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Southern California, an MFA in creative writing from the University of California, Riverside, and an MA in comparative literature and critical theory from the University of California, Irvine. She is the founding editor of the publishing collective Surplus Ediciones in Mexico, and has received the P.D. Soros Fellowship for New Americans. So Gabriela, you should be able to turn on your microphone now.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro, Anya. And thank you so much, Richard, for that wonderful, wonderful talk and discussion about your work and about art and inspiration and fancy. I also agree with everyone. It was extremely generous and wonderful to hear you discuss your work. I would like to invoke another mystic to open this brief reading before we all leave. And her name is Sor Juanines De La Cruz. She's a 17th century Baroque poet from Mexico, from the region of Puebla. She was born in Nepantla, just under the volcanoes. I'll read a very small poem of hers that sort of reminds me of things that Richard was just talking about. And I'll read it in Spanish and then in English. It's very brief. In Spanish, it's titled Este que ves, engaño colorido. Este que ves, engaño colorido, que del arte ostentando los primores, con falsos silogismos de colores, es cauteloso engaño del sentido. Este en quien la lisonja ha pretendido excusar de los años los horrores y venciendo del tiempo los rigores, triunfar de la vejez y del olvido. Es un vano artificio del cuidado, es una flor al viento delicada, es un resguardo inútil para el hado, es una necia diligencia errada, es un afán caduco y, bien mirado, es cadáver, es polvo, es sombra, es nada. And here's the English translation. It's sonnet 145, in which she attempts to refute the praises of a portrait of the poet signed by truth, which she calls passion. This thing you see, a bright colored deceit, displaying all the many charms of art with false syllogisms of tint and hue, is a cunning deception of the eye. This thing in which sheer flattery has tried to evade the stark horrors of the years and, vanquishing the cruelties of time, to triumph over age and oblivion, is vanity, contrivance, artifice, a delicate blossom stranded in the wind, a failed defense against our common fate, a fruitless enterprise, a great mistake, a decrepit frenzy, and rightly viewed, a corpse, some dust, a shadow, mere nothingness. And that translation is by Edith Grossman. And now I'll just read you an old poem of mine from the Controlled Decay book, but it's full of colors. It was sort of looking at Richard's work made me want to read this. It's sort of colorful and dance, but it also has to do with what Sor Juana speaks of in that poem. And the title is Get On Down to the Floor to the Heaven of Other Animals. 1. The flash of a mirror pulled out to adjust the trace of lipstick lights on the dance floor. Do you feel the brush of ba-ba-ba, whatever it is that touches the skin, the smell of your skin and mine getting down? Dance, turn your heels and show me what you can do. Get on down to the floor, to the heaven of other animals, not human. You do not need this song. You do not need anyone's song. You close your eyes, you quiet. The toes tip, move to the heels, the tips of your toes get quiet, quite unnamed. You are jump that never ends, jump, flash, strobe, tight next to me. You get in the never-ending structure of the little bells behind my head. I'm afraid you will never like me more than when I am dancing. If I know how to move, the body connects to something and just keeps going like a scream in the middle of the night. Crisp, you say, rise, will you dance? A flash of teeth never ending, mirror getting down to steal the floor, to steal what is left of the world for me. 1 second of dance, reggaeton bumping on my bumper, cumbia del destino. You don't know what it means for me to be in love with your dancing shoes in the ballroom next to mine, slowly crawling from here onto nowhere. And I is a long way home, baby. Nunca supe a donde me llevarían los caminos de la vida. Look, I miss you on the dance floor and I don't even know you. I miss you because the dance floor is made for mirrors and animals like you, like me, who rise untouched but scarred with white teeth and long nights. 2. Sonidero, no cadence, my hips are your crib, hip, 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 menela, mami, menela. I want you to think of the dance floor on checkerboard white and black. Not a pawn, you dance freely, no one needs to move you. Think of the mirror, I can see your smile, my eyes are closed and I can see it. Cumbia over the river, east of the river, my place is Reds with the tough ladies of the East River jails. They dance around me with their lady tattoos on their forearms, tough haircuts. I like this bar, it's my kind of place, I tell you. Dance with the rebel, dance with your animal, never ending. Even my fingers hurt. I can't feel my feet. The ceiling is covered with records, old 45s no one listens to anymore. 3. Live music alive, the music I like should beat me to you. The space between nothingness is music. Nobody is music. Nobody has its music going, playing like minimal, millennium coming like a horse, a rebel horse, the dance that never ends, not with death, but with each other, in the night and to the morning where the streets are filled with boys and girls who dance for money. With you or anyone, baby, I dance for free. No need to call me ficherita, solo fichita. I am particular, I like to lead. Follow the music, not you. Follow my heart, no one else. I follow the music, the animal follows. I follow the animal. I am in love with people I do not know. 4. Smell the musk of bodies moving together and cry with accordion lungs. Cry till your lips bleed. The stars are shining. Cumbia poder se asomaba. Bring me the light. The things you said, beauty. Fill me with the cumbia. Take this madness from me. This is a dance floor. This is a dance floor for those who can move as fast as teeth chattering on cold November nights. No moon, no nubes. Ruben is the master. I cannot tell you how much your music feels me with cumbia. No madness but peace. No nubes. No ves. You see what kind of life is this? Without tears, without anything except toes tapping on the floor, seashells at the bottom of the ocean. Quiet. I live for the moments I cannot bear myself thinking. I like to sweat and smell like a man who can dance, who is no longer beautiful or ugly, only animal, a plant quickened in the wind, no more than that, no less. This is what I am when I dance, when I turn on the music, when I grow from it like the nails out of my fingers and onto the fingers of someone else holding my hand, cemented together. This is pure unity. Purity. We are nothing if not dust, but dust in love, ashes floating in the strobe light, moving on the dance floor, sweeping here and there, dust in love, shimmering mirrors, moving into each other, slowly crossing paths, shuffle dust, dust dancing, dust in the pebble light of your brain mirror reflecting teeth, little bites of music into the flesh of nothing but ashes, burning on the dance floor, under the 45s, black and shiny, gelled down, hair in grooves, Catherine with a toothpick in the corner of his mouth, staring at the lady, from the corner of the mouth to see which one he'll pick. No, listen, I pick your toothpick. What's better or more beautiful than hair groovy and black like a record to dance with, lifting dust clouds, being danced off the dance floor by ashes in love, like you, like me. Sweat will wash us all away. Between the fingers, cement crumbles, ruined. When the music is gone, I will be gone too. So send me an endless set of music to get on down, to shake, dust or no dust. Time passes, but rhythm stays, know what I mean? Sweet fingers moving me. Woman, I be lady-o. Okay, always fichita, but no pawn. Not a woman, but a cat woman. Not a cat woman, but animal. Pure animal, lady, woman dancing on black and white linoleum, hot keels clicking like gold tongues, and the throat sings itself to blood. Flash in the night, the lady can't be told, the lady leads forever. The dust I sweep with patent leather heals is better than any legs. The dust that I am can be banished for some time. The power of voice, of eyelashes and mirror smile will clean it off the dance floor, if only for a moment. Unity with nails biting like teeth into my hands till the blood mixes with the sweat and the ashes, cigarette smoke and strobe lights. No water, but animal on the dance floor. The dance accordion opening and closing a compass of legs around the floor. No drinks beating, sweet sweat, only foreheads and sides of noses. All profiles are painful in the night. I don't know who's a woman. I'm a woman. Call me lady though. Call me woman. I'm a lady. When I dance, that's all I am. Between one drumbeat and the next, pure dust, pure sweat, sweet. Thoughts erased, thoughts of you or me. Only the in-betweenness of music, throbbing like the inside of a flower or a plant underwater, moving this way, then that, a grain of sand or dust. Endless minerality of music enters and possesses my soul. No soul, only a pebble washing down a stream with other pebbles, not yours or mine. In the water, shattered records falling from the ceiling, jet black. Thank you. And thanks again for this invitation.
Thank you, Gabriela. That was beautiful. Such a wonderful way to end this event. And thank you again, Richard and Louis and Amanda, and to all who tuned in today and took part in this incredibly engaged and vibrant conversation. I really appreciate all your questions and comments. This year, we are celebrating the Rail's 20th anniversary, so please consider making a contribution to our anniversary fundraising campaign to keep the Rail and our special projects free, relevant, and independent, projects like the NSE Conversation, and also our special project, We the Immigrants. Every amount matters to us, and I'll post the link in the chat for more information. Please also join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a radical poetry reading with Sadia Hassan, featuring political poetry read by Helene Achansar, Janice Lobo Sabigao, Taylor Johnson, and Nabila Lovelace. And you can now turn on your microphone to say goodbye.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Richard.
Gabriela.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So
much.
Bye-bye.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wish
I could
make it to the show,
Richard.
This has been great. Thank you for the reading also. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you.
Richard.
Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Richard.
Gracias, Gabriela. Te quiero.
Ciao.
Gracias, Gabriela. Thank you so much. Thank you, Richard. Let's
Thank
go get
you.
some lunch. I think
Let's have lunch.
we deserve our lunch now. So let's go
I
lunch
think
with
so.
our Rich and see you super soon. Ciao, Karina.
Or breakfast to dinner.
Ciao.
Yes, exactly. Ciao. Bye.